Our next panel is very special as well because it brings a sort of a look and a light in terms of another spectrum of sports, and it's our women in sports category. And so I would like to introduce our moderator. Her name is April Woodard. April is an anchor for WTKR News 3. She's the co-host of the morning show Coast Live. She's also assistant professor at Hampton University. She's a native of the Hampton Roads area. She attended University of Virginia. And so without further ado, I would like to bring on April to be the moderator for our next panel. Thank you so much, April.
Hi, Carl. It's April. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right. So good to see you. Hopefully we'll get to see each other in person sooner than later.
Yes.
I'm so excited about being here today because, women made their first appearance in the Olympic Games in Paris in 1900. And that year, 22 women competed in tennis, sailing, croquet, equestrian, and golf. And in Tokyo this summer, more than 5,000 female athletes will compete in more than 300 events. Now, that's a come up, right? But although the doors have been open for women, there's still some setbacks in sports, like equal pay, being respected for your skill, not your skin color, and the pressure of being the first. And so today, we have some women who have experienced some level of this, and they're very familiar with some of these challenges, and I'm going to welcome them now. I'd like to welcome Christina Braxton, Apparel and Licensing Manager of the NFL Players, Inc. We have Latonya Story, President and CEO of LPS Consulting. And then finally, we have Maia Chaka, NFL referee, National Football League. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good to see you. So if you guys could start out just by giving us like a minute introduction, a little bit about yourself and, anything that you want to share in a minute, whether it's your bio or what you're doing today or anything that you want to share. So you want to start in the order that I introduced you in?
Sure. I wasn't sure if that was the order we were doing or not. So thank you for that introduction. Again, my name is Christina Braxton. I'm the Apparel Licensing Manager for NFL Players Incorporated, which is the licensing and marketing subsidiary of the NFL Players Association, the labor union for all active NFL players. So I oversee all apparel licensing, and that's any of those companies that fall into the apparel space. So jerseys, t-shirts, socks, hats, and then I have a few other licensees that we consider hard goods. So that's going to be your bobbleheads or collectibles of any kind. I am a proud graduate of Howard University, class of 2013, Go Bison. And so I am happy to be here around great people, around people of color in sports. I think there's a lot of opportunity that presents itself that a lot of people don't have access to. So it's one of those things where the more we can do things like this, the more we can bring our own in and more people can be exposed to this great industry that we all work in.
All right, wonderful. Okay, we're going to move on to Latonya.
Hi, my name's Latonya.
Sorry, Latonya.
No, that's okay.
You know what, girl, let me just keep it real. There we go. Okay, Latonya, I'm sorry.
I always say there's the N for nice.
I love it.
Well, my name is Latonya Story. I own LPS Consulting PR. It's a public relations and marketing boutique agency. I am from Norfolk, Virginia. I went to Maury High School and Old Dominion University. I currently represent Michael Vick, who is also a 757 native, and I represent Maria Taylor, as you know. And I have, other clients in the field as well. But I got my start in my backyard in Hampton Roads, volunteering for the Allen Iverson Celebrity Summer Classic back in 2000. I've been in the business for 20 years. And I'm just really excited to be here and kind of dive more into the topics that we're going to discuss and how we got started in this field.
All right, wonderful. Maia Chaka, did I say your name right?
You did. Thank you. Good morning to everyone. I'm Maia Chaka. So I'm actually the first African-American woman to be officiating in the National Football League this year. And this was a tremendous journey, just full of hard work, full of obstacles. And I'm at the point in my life right now where I'm able to merge my two passions, because not only am I a sports referee, I'm still an educator first and foremost. And so I do have a passion for, just giving back and helping out with the youth. And I'm also right now working with Achievable Dream Academy as a program success coordinator. So I'll be located strictly in Virginia Beach. But I'm just able now to still continue to motivate young ladies and motivate even young men about teaching them how to reach their dreams and, just how to overcome obstacles when you think that you probably just aren't good enough, or when you probably just need that extra push, because we all need it when we're trying to make it to the absolute top or break barriers.
Okay, I'm going to start with you, Maia, because you talked about being the first Black woman to be an NFL referee. So what does the first mean? Because, you have a mixed bag. Some people are like, well, I don't want to be acknowledged for the first. And some people are like, I am the first, and that is not a problem. So where do you fall on the spectrum?
So for me, I never set out to anything to be the first. I always just set out to be the absolute best. And if I just make, break records or break ceilings while I'm doing it, great. So for me, I know the responsibility that it carries, because if I don't do well, I know the way that that's going to reflect on my community. I know that's the way that's going to reflect on other women and other minority women. So I'm fully aware of the responsibility that it carries. But at the same time, just my personality as a whole, I just go along with the flow.
Got it. Okay, so the next question it has to deal with being labeled, being a woman, being a female, and there are all kinds of labels that myths and stereotypes can come with that, from being an angry Black woman to being this or that. So what about the labels that people try to attribute to you? And do you have to do any special things to make sure that you don't succumb to that label? Anybody, this is for anyone.
Yeah, I guess the main thing would be kind of what Maia said. It's whenever you're given an opportunity, you have to take full advantage of that. And I don't want to say, perform at the best for the entire race, but it's still the reality that whatever you do can affect those that are coming behind you and the opportunities that could present themselves. So a lot of those stereotypes that Black women are loud, aggressive, which is a trigger word, but it's a word that they love to use for us, that we're aggressive, that we're bold. And you always have to be mindful with any space that you're in, which it's unfortunate, but you kind of have to be like, okay, don't get too angry when someone says something like that. Hold your tongue, make sure that you have a smile on your face, or your face isn't showing what you're really thinking, which can be hard because there's this term that they use called code switching. And so when you're around, your friends, you can be one way, but when you're in the workplace and you might be around white people and Asian people and Hispanic people, you have to be another way, and it gets exhausting. But at the same time, that that's what you have to do so you don't get labeled these types of terms that people love to use. So I was very fortunate to be brought up. I guess I shouldn't say fortunate, but I was brought up where I was one of the only Black people in my schools that I was in. So I was like one of a handful, I should say. And with that, you kind of represent an entire race, which is unfortunate, but at the same time, it gives you an opportunity to, one, educate people that you're in school with, but also you can see different cultures and you hear, the things that they say. They're like, oh, she's this way, or oh, they're that way. And you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, is that what they really think of us? But it kind of helps you to know, like, we are our own people and we can be how we want to be, but there's a certain way to act in certain spaces. And because I'm more on the corporate side of things, I'm in a lot of conference rooms, I'm on a lot of calls with different key stakeholders, and you just have to know, you have to present yourself in a proper way. That way they say, you know what, she's a really bubbly, fun, nice person. We love working with her. We want to continue to do business with her, because at the end of the day, not only does my job affect all NFL players, but it also affects those companies that I work with and my organization being the NFLPA.
All right, great answer. Latonya, you want to chime in?
I do. So there were a couple of things that she said, I was nodding my head to. Code switching definitely popped, in my mind. And then also too about, being aggressive. For me, I am naturally an assertive person. And so I don't run from that, especially, in the business that I am and where there's very few women, especially very few women who represent high profile talent. And so, for me, I embrace being assertive, but I also know that a closed mouth won't get fed. Right.
Mm.
And so for the things that I need to do, I have to kind of present myself in a very strong, confident manner. So when I'm dealing with brands or corporations, or in Michael's case, dealing with Fox and dealing with the people that, have to kind of manage their careers, I have to come off, in a way that people want to deal with me, like she just said. But, for me, I like the word nice, but I also like the word firm as well. Again, because you don't want people to run over you as well. So you want to come in like you know what you're doing, that you're knowledgeable. And then I pride myself on being a great person and teammate to work with. I always tell that to Michael. People like working with me inside of Fox. People like dealing with me for Maria. People like dealing with me for my other clients, because I want to do things professional, be a nice person doing it, but also be stern and firm when I need to do that as well.
Right. And I concur with what you're saying, because sometimes if you're real nice all the time, then when you have to get a little stern, people are very shocked and are like, oh my goodness, April, I didn't know you had that edge. So I kind of show them a little bit to let them know that don't play around. All right. So for people who are watching now, we have a lot of high schoolers who, are trying to decide what they want to do or what they want to go into. And of course, they love sports, which is why they're here. Do you have some advice for them in being a woman in this industry that is dominated oftentimes by men?
Yeah,
Anybody?
I would love to. I would love to take that first.
Okay.
One thing I would say that having a good mentor is very important. I would say, Carl Francis has been my mentor for probably 18 years. So a mentor is someone who is going to support you, encourage you, tell you the things that you need to hear that you may not want to hear. I remember when I first started out, 20 years ago, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to do this and that. And there was one thing Carl told me, Latonya, you need to hone in on one thing. You may be able to do event planning and this and that, but what is that one thing that you can hone in and really perfect? And for me, that was public relations and publicity. Down the road, I started to get into marketing and event planning, but that really helped me. And then once you start to get in the workforce, you need a sponsor. The sponsor is someone internally. That's someone who is speaking your name behind closed doors, making sure that you have a seat at the table. For me, it's been a lot of, it's been luck, it's been preparation, and it's been opportunity, but it's also been people who've been advocating for me. My business is probably 100% referral. So, it takes a lot, for me to be able to get into those spaces that I may not otherwise be able to get into, because a lot of the high profile talent goes to these large agencies like Octagon, CAA, IMG. But, to have a talent to say, hey, I want to work with this boutique firm who can give me one-on-one attention. They're not, filled with a roster of over 50 to 100 other athletes or talent. And then you're able to do that for them. So I would say mentorship, opportunity, for them, and get someone that's going to help shepherd them through this industry.
All right, that's really good. Anybody else want to chime in before I move to the next question that piggybacks off of what Latonya was saying?
Sure, I'll chime in on that a little bit. I'll even take it to the next level. Being a woman in a male-dominated field, there are going to be some times when you're going to be challenged, you're going to be asked to compromise your morals and values. Mm-hmm. And you have to be real confident within yourself and understand that you don't have to compromise yourself in order to be successful. And just really understand also, you're going to be around guys who are superstars and these athletes, and you cannot get starstruck. Like, they're human beings the same way that we're human beings, and they're going to hit on you because they're men, and you don't have to accept their advances, and you can politely turn them down. That's just the nature of the beast when you deal with it. I go to training camp all the time and I get hit on by guys, on the sideline from coaches, but that's just them trying to, just trying to test the waters a little bit, trying to see where I stand, trying to see if they can influence me. And so you can't be that type of person that is influenced or that, is just easily starstruck by these men. You have to be standing your ground and know that you have to perform and know that you have a job to do.
Excellent advice.
And the last thing I'll say is just, I mean, totally agree with everything Latonya and Maia said. And you have to feel like that you're equally as qualified for whatever job that you have that a male might have. I mean, it's admirable to see Maia in the position that she's in. It's sad it's taken this long for us to even get here, but I'm so happy that we're finally here and we're at a space where women can look to her and be like, oh, that is something that I can do. And whether it's on the team side or if you're on the business side of sports like I am, I think you should look at any position that's available. You're equally as qualified to do it regardless. And then the second thing I would say is to just intern while you can. This is the most perfect time to intern. I know for a lot of internships, they want college students, but in high school, you can do a lot of job shadowing. Just reach out to someone on LinkedIn, make you a LinkedIn now. It's not too early to make one. And just reach out to people on there and say, hey, would it be okay if I shadowed you for one day? And just get different kinds of experience, because I knew I wanted to be in sports. I thought I was going to do sports broadcasting. My undergrad degree is in journalism. And I ended up not going that path, but I was able to have a lot of different internships with the formerly the Washington Redskins, and then PGA Tour down in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, Tiger Woods Foundation, and then the NFLPA. And I got a good breath of the different things that I was wanting to do. That way I could have a focus, and I got a little taste here, a little taste there, and I could say, oh, that wasn't something I really wanted to do, or this was something I loved. By interning, you're able to dabble your foot in, so then you're not getting stuck in a job that ends up being your full-time job that you don't necessarily want to do. So as much as you can do, if it's every semester, summer, fall, and spring, or if you just do one for the summer, just take that time to figure it out what you want to do.
I love that. And I'm going to transition because I do have interns that I work with one-on-one, and I have expectations of a mentor, a mentee, and interns. And so I just want to give a realistic view of what you all look for somebody that you mentor, because it can't just be hands out. What are you going to do for me? How are you going to hook me up? How are you going to introduce me to these people? But it has to be a two-way street. And for me, I'm very strategic about who I select as mentees, and as interns, because I'm going to put my stamp of approval on this person. And if I can't count on them to be a hard worker or somebody who cuts corners, I'm not going to do that. And so, there's some vetting that goes into that. So for you ladies, is there something that you should say or you would suggest to anyone who is trying to be an intern or a mentee?
Sure. So I'll take that. The people I look for when I choose to be their mentor, I like people who fall in love with the process, and they don't care about the outcome. They're just trying to be the best at everything that is put in front of them. Because eventually, once you're just great at everything that's fundamentally sound, it opens up the doors for so many things. If you heard Latonya talk about, she was in the PR and marketing, and she wanted to dabble in everything, but you cannot, those doors don't open for you unless you just fall in love with getting really good at the basics that are in front of you. So you can't be afraid to do grunt work. You just want to be involved in every avenue possible, and just don't put limitations on yourself.
Got it. Latonya, what are you looking for interns at your company?
Right now, I actually have an intern from Elizabeth City State that I'm working with through a pilot program that they have. And so, for me, I want to find someone who's okay with doing non-glamorous work. Right. Because when you think about public relations and publicity, you think about red carpet, you think about dressing up, you think about being at the ESPYs and all these other award shows. But there's a lot of things that I have to do before you even get to on camera, right? I have to do a media advisory. I have to have relationships with the media. I have to have great contacts. You have to do a media list. So my intern right now, she's, creating a media list. She's doing graphics. She's, she's doing phone calls, doing filing, things that may not seem glamorous, that you don't think is a part of your job. All of those things are needed when it comes to public relations and publicity. And so, for me, I'm very cautious of who I bring around, especially if it's a young woman who I bring around me, because I do work around a lot of players. And, I have found, and this has been through trial and error, I've had, young ladies who have come to want to be seen, who who want to prance around the players. And I just can't have that, you know. And I always tell everyone, the only thing you have in this business is your name. So keep it clean. You don't want when someone mentions Latonya's story, mentions Maia, Mrs. Christina, the first thing they think like, girl, is she this, is she that, or we had her, just being real, right? And so, you know, it's a reflection on my clients and it's a reflection on me. And so I'm very cautious and I'm deliberate when I bring a young woman on as a mentee, as an intern. And I want to make sure that she's in the business for the right reasons. You're not, you know, in this business to try to get chosen, right? To get flown out. And it's a different time from when I started 20 years ago. You know, we didn't have social media when I first started. So I'm very careful to make sure I don't have young ladies who just want to post pictures for the gram and do all of that. It takes away from the job. So for me, because of the industry that I'm in, it's a little bit more deliberate, and I just have to be very careful and really, you know, shepherd them in a way that I have to be real with them and not crush their dreams, but also know that it's a job and it's not a glamorous job at times.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
All right, Christina.
Oh yeah, I'll be brief. I agree with what Latonya and both Maia were saying again. I mean, they're bringing up really good points, and that's the hardest part in being in sports is, as a woman, is being taken seriously, that you're not looking for something else other than the job, because there are a lot of us who enjoy this industry and just sports in general, and we enjoy working in it. And when I'm looking for someone to mentor or interns, I'm looking for hard workers. If you're sending me your resume and cover letter, no typos, you read through it, it's clean, it's crisp, I can pass it along if I need to. And I also like to hold on to the different resumes that I do receive for future opportunities. And if we're able to hire someone, I love to bring someone in. We brought in a young lady about 3 years ago, and she has progressed in her career so much. And I've just kind of taken her under my wing. And her father is actually a former player, but she never used that. She always wanted to make a name for herself, and former player, I mean NFL player. She always wanted to make a name for herself, and she was one of the hardest workers that I knew. And her life started to change. She's engaged now, so she moved and changed jobs, but another job was brought to me from IMG Academy. And I was like, oh, I know the perfect person for this. Her first day was this past Wednesday. And so it's stuff like that. It's when you make a good first impression on someone, I can easily make a phone call and say, hey, no, I worked with this phenomenal woman. She's going to give you everything that you need. She'd be perfect for the job. And a lot of the times you get to go past all those first rounds of interviews and you kind of get to go to the final stage. So then you can be considered for these jobs. And really that's what the sports industry is. It's truly who you know. So I think it was Latonya that said, you have your name, you know. If your name is tainted, people aren't going to open that door for you. Carl Francis and I work together, and he does so much for me. I call him Uncle Carl because I feel like he's always looking out for me, and he's always trying to put me in a position to be great, and he's always encouraging me. So I think it goes back on me too, from when I was an intern, making sure I was the best that I could be. But I try to get as much out of interns as they do from me, and same with mentees, because there is that age gap, and with technology changing and jargon that the different generations are using, it's good for you to kind of help me stay on top of everything that's going on. So I would just say, put your best foot forward no matter what, even when you're doing those jobs that don't feel as glamorous. Filing is going to be something you're going to do in all of your jobs. So get used to it early on, so then you get really good at it, and it takes you less time than someone who doesn't do that as frequently. So
we got some comments from the chat. Our name is our brand. If you want to send a question in the chat, you can do so at this time. One of the questions is it hard to just be yourself while at work? I can start with that. Yes, it is, because I'm smiling on TV all day long, and sometimes I have a migraine and the lights are bad and I got a headache, and it's not always easy. And unfortunately, my family gets it, because then I come home and I'm like, whoo, and I really can be myself. So what about you ladies?
Sorry, go Latonya.
Yeah, you know what? You know, there are times that I really want to give people a piece of my mind, but I know I can't. And I just have to be, you know, professional, and I have, you know, friends that I can call and vent to.
Girl.
Confidentially, of course, you know. And for me, I'm like, this is off the record. But it's I think that goes back again to how we're also perceived about, again, you don't want to come off like the angry Black woman, or you're trying to tell folks off every 5 minutes. But it's just, it goes back to what she said about code switching, you know what I mean? And so we just have to, as a woman, as a Black woman, we have to carry ourselves in a way where we're always monitoring ourselves. You know what I mean? And it shouldn't have to be that, but we have to. It's something that we can say, and the way the tone of our voice is, the way our mannerisms are, it can come off-putting to other individuals, and it also threatens them. And you didn't mean it any type of way. So I have to find myself kind of watching how my facial expression is. I have to do that a lot. So my facial expression can change and I don't even know it, because I'm a type of person, if I don't fool with you, I don't fool with you. And so I have to kind of monitor myself when I do that.
I can totally relate to that. And I want to ask Maia, because, she had the camera on her face during a call, or somebody said something to her, and I'm like, oh, they're zooming in. So how do you keep that blank face where it doesn't show or express your emotions? Because I'm not a good poker player. You can see everything in my face. And I'm like, so how do you do that, Maia?
I think that comes from 15 years of being an educator in alternative education, when we're dealing with so many people who have different personalities, and you just have to always be the calm person to be the diffuser of a situation and just not being rattled. And that also comes just from experience of always being in situations when you're under pressure, coming from an athletic background. When I was an athlete and you're put on the free throw line and you have to knock down those free throws and block out what everybody else is saying. And so I think that's a natural transition from anyone who's being an athlete and you want to step into like a sports world. You already have it in your blood that you can work under pressure and you're not rattled. But also, I'm always my authentic self. And maybe that's why it took me 7 years to be hired by the National Football League, as opposed to everyone else with their 3 and 4. But that's something I had to learn. I had to learn my authentic work me and my professional me, that it wasn't too different from my everyday life, so that people would accept that. And I pretty much forced them to accept that, because I'm just not trying to toot my own horn. I'm very good at what I do. Like, my resume speaks for itself. Like, I put the work in, and once you put the work in, they have to accept me no matter what, because there's no one else that can compare to me at that point. Like, that's how I create that separation. And I just totally stay true to me. And I found out what works and how I'm able to interact with guys and men that don't look like me, that have a 20-year age gap, that come from a completely different cultural background for myself. So I had to learn how to communicate with them. And once I learned that, I was able to still be my authentic self, within that.
All right, we only have a few more minutes before we got to go to the poll questions. So one of the questions that was posted in the chat is, how do you measure success? So I'm going to start with Christina. How do you measure success? How do you measure it?
Success as in my personal career?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I would say am I happy? Am I happy with what I'm doing? Do I enjoy my job every day? I have plenty of friends and people that I know that hate their jobs going every single day, and it's just hard. I love my job. I've been with the NFLPA going on 8 years this August, and I can't believe that the time has flown. I make sure that I'm always doing something to where I feel like I'm growing, because I think that's where a lot of people get frustration. They feel stagnant. They feel like it's monotonous. They're doing the same thing every single day and that they're not growing. So I make my own opportunities, whether it's doing a webinar or doing a different kind of training, making sure I'm reaching out to people within the industry, because I'm in the licensing industry, which is a whole global industry, but I'm also in sports industry. And so I'm able to meet with different kinds of people. And so just, bouncing ideas off of them, what they're doing, what's going on, anything I should get involved with, making sure I'm keeping my schedule pretty full so I don't get bored or anything like that. And that's what success for me, and making sure that I'm growing. And for me in my career, I feel like I have done a lot of things. I'm on my 3rd position at the NFLPA, which is sometimes unheard of because we're so small and it can be hard to grow. But I just make sure that I'm doing things to make me happy and that I have my own personal growth. And that's how I measure success.
Okay, real quick, we're at the end of the road. So who wants to tell us how they measure success real quick?
I would say, after, being in this industry, for 20 years, I created an event 3 years ago called the Sports Power Brunch that honors women in sports. It's an award show that takes place during Super Bowl week. And so to be able to have that type of event to continue to honor women, celebrate women, and gather women in a room has really been a blessing, to me. And it kind of shows the growth of my career that I'm able to get people to buy into that, whether that's brands, executives, the league, the NFL, and the NFLPA, who've both been supporters. That means a lot. And again, also trying to find that work-life balance and continue to extend my brand in sports.
Maia, real quick.
Measure my success based off of the opportunities that I'm able to create for other women of color, being able to recruit and, have more women that are now officiating high school football or even basketball, like in this area on this level. After I got in, I was the first Black woman to officiate Division I college football. Now I've created opportunities. We have 10 African-American women officiating Division I college football. We now have 4 African-American women that are in the NFL development program. So my success is measured on the opportunities I create for other women that look like me.
Excellent. You guys were so wonderful. I would love to stay in touch with you, Carl. Hook it up, because I want to talk to each of you individually after this is over. I do want to direct you to the poll questions right now. So one question, what factor or factors, let's see. Let me put my glasses on. Do you think will increase women's participation in the sports industry? Question 2, how can schools better prepare young women for a career in sports? And question 3, if you could eliminate one barrier for women in, what would that be? So please, I can't vote and the panelists can't vote, but we want you to vote. So we want to get some reaction from you all real quick. If you can chime in and tell us what you think so we can tell you what the results are in the next few minutes, that would be wonderful for us to get in here. So what do you guys do on the rest of your day? It's Friday. Still working?
Yes, I have another Zoom meeting, and I have to do a media advisory to send out to the media. I have some pitching to do.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay, well, please let us know at my show if you want to pitch some people. So
absolutely.
I would love to have that. We've had Maia on, and she was a lovely guest. I really appreciate that. And we got to get you on too, Miss Christina. This is our first time getting a chance to meet one another, but I would love to have you all talk about it. And when you do your event, Latonya, I'm not an athlete. I have trained one in PR. He will remain nameless, but you can figure out who it is. I don't want to influence Maia, Chaka for what team I root for, but out west. But anyway, I would love to participate in your women in sports event, even though I kind of am not in sports.
Gotcha.
Okay. But I did sports training. So there you go.
Awesome. So
right,
Carl, make sure you connect us. Carl Vernon, connect
Carl,
all of us. And Maia, Christina, I need to be connected to all of you all.
Absolutely. Okay, so do we have any poll responses? Am I supposed to wait for the response? What we got? Anybody? Here we go. Look at that. Okay, what factors do you think will increase women's participation in the sports industry? Role models. We got 3 right here. All right. How can schools better prepare young women for a career in sports? Leadership roles. Great answer. Great answer. More leadership roles. And here's the 3rd. If you could eliminate one barrier for women in sports, what would that be? And the answer that got the most responses: discrimination and hiring practices. Yeah. And that is followed by almost equal amounts for gender pay gap, stereotypical thinking, and lack of representation. So thank you guys so much for participating. Thank you so much for our audience out there. And you can always get in touch with these folks. Let me give you all's email addresses they provided. Christina, KRYSTY.NA.Braxton@NFLPA.com. Please put that in the chat. Latonya story, Latonya at lpsconsultingpr.com. Y'all gonna get a lot of emails, but they told me to release this information, so I hope I'm good. And Maia Chaka is jalen.brownpr@gmail.com. Thank you again for participating. We appreciate it. And kudos to you all and what you've already done.
Thank you for having us.
Sure. Bye.
Bye. JY. Okay.
Carl, you gonna take over?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We got it. Thank you so much for joining, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you so much. And we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
All right. Bye-bye.